Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it. Kevin, what's happening, mister? How are you?
Here we are again.
Yes, and we're going to have some banter tonight. We're not going to dive right in because we don't have a guest here. It's just us.
It's just us.
Yeah.
Talking about important things.
Great conversation last week, though, with Dan Schilling.
It was great.
Hope I've gotten great feedback from folks that have listened to it already, and hope those of you who have not take time to do so. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, that was, I really enjoyed chatting with him, and he ended up being, he ended up being different than I thought he was going to be in a very good way. Not that the stuff that I saw, because I watched some previous podcasts and read some stuff and watched some YouTube videos, and probably because I wasn't personally engaged in the conversation with him. But I don't know. I thought he was wonderful. It was great.
Yeah. Thanks again to Dan for taking time to do that.
Thank you, Dan.
Appreciate it.
It was great. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah. All right. So what else is going on? What's new and exciting in your world?
I got a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Are you ready? No.
When you say it like that with the little smirk on your face, my danger signs go up. Danger, Will Robinson.
Is our honeymoon over?
Is our honeymoon over?
Right.
I don't think so.
All right.
Do you feel like our honeymoon's over?
No, I still feel like
I think we're still the odd couple.
Right.
Our honeymoon is not over. No. Why? Why do you ask?
I don't know, because I don't know. I was thinking about it.
It's just kind of an odd question.
Well,
kind of a weird question to
I was
to throw
preparing
out there.
for the podcast, and for some reason, I started thinking about that, and I'm wondering, because there's a number of different kinds of relationships that you have in your life. There's the one, of course, with your spouse,
right?
But there are other ones, and do they all come with honeymoon phases, and do they change over time? And that made me think about, how about this? How about this? There you go.
Yeah.
That was my pondering for the.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you, right? So
Yeah.
the topic that we're talking about this evening, well, it won't be evening probably when you're listening to this if you're one of the ones that listens to it right away. But the topic is the honeymoon's over. What now? And yeah, you bring up a great point that, I think historically we think of honeymoon as that time following the wedding, the marriage of a couple, and then they go off on vacation and so on and so forth. And maybe it's just that time, or maybe it extends into that, whatever period you might define. That's the first part of the relationship, right? Before they get back to their ordinary lives and the day-to-day of it.
Could be a couple years, couldn't it?
Yeah, and at the same time, well, I want to expand on that.
Okay.
But, at the same time, it can be used for other relationships, and whether it's a new job, right? There might be a honeymoon phase to a new job. There might be in any relationship that you have with someone. So yeah, that's interesting you pointed that out.
In a business, a new hire. Yeah.
But here's the thing, and this is what I wanted to throw out there about the whole honeymoon phase and that terminology to begin with. I think it's another one of those things that we as a society have put out there as a norm, and have, whether, I don't think it was with ill intent, but ultimately I feel like it's created an expectation that it's going to be good and then transition to not as good.
Okay.
And I think that's a bad way to look at things. So I don't think that this actually came from my wife when I asked her the question, about the honeymoon's over. I tell her what the topic was going to be, and she's like, well, I don't think the honeymoon's over. I'm like, well, God bless you.
What a great thing for your wife to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I sat there and thought about it, and I actually wouldn't want her to answer that any other way.
Yeah.
So, and that got me thinking, do we look at this the wrong way as a society when we talk about the honeymoon, and, are we setting people up to have this expectation that it's going to be absolutely great during this first period and then it gets shitty? Or, I just think maybe we need to shift the way we're thinking about that.
That's a very good point, and you're right. There's a construct that's been put out there that, in fact, I did it. I did it this week. I Googled, the honeymoon's over. Now what? Just to see what was out there on that. And you're right. It's all brace for shock. It's coming.
Right.
It's gonna change. And I think the way I would react to that is, and I'm thinking back to what I know about premarital counseling that is given to couples that are usually associated with a church.
Right.
That do they talk about it in those terms, or do they just talk about it as the marriage is growing, it's evolving, it's actually getting better, but it is changing, because the warm and fuzzy that dominates every fiber of your body, during the early stages, it changes.
Well, it has to change.
Right.
You went from being an I only to being a we.
Right.
And so things have to change. Now I'm not suggesting that you give up the I, and I think that's where people sometimes make mistakes is they feel like they have to surrender the I, the individuality that they have, in order to be a part of this new we as a couple. And I don't think that's the case. I think that those three entities can coexist. The we as a couple and the individual husband and wife that were, individual people beforehand. You don't have to, transition into that we and do everything as we. You don't have to have a joint Facebook account. And if you do, please stop. I mean, you just...
Some people like it.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, to each their own, right?
Right.
But it's, wear your own pants. Hey, I mean, that's just how I feel. It's my opinion. You can hate on me if you want.
No,
but I just think that you don't have to give that up, right? And I think that's where people sometimes make mistakes, is that they give up the individual or individuals that they were before with the intent of now being this couple all the time and creating this new existence. And you can't just completely do away with those two entities that were there before. And what you have to do, in my opinion, is to figure out how to make all that work, right? So how to be who you are, who you've been historically, both, I'm talking, unilaterally here, the male and the female, right? Husband and wife, and then how that fits into the we, and how do you go forward as a couple and experience great things and so on.
Yeah, in terms of what's the right word I want? I was going to say preserving the I. You do become a we, but I think actually it's quite healthy to make sure that you work into your relationship time for yourself.
Absolutely.
Time away. To be able to just be with yourself, think your own thoughts, do your own things, and it really is true. Absence does make the heart grow fonder over time, because it makes you want to come back together again and reconnect with that very significant person in your life that you had, and probably in some respects still have,
right,
the honeymoon with. And as your wife said, it ain't over.
Nope. The honeymoon doesn't have to be over.
Right.
I do have this tendency to look up things on Urban Dictionary. We actually do that when we're giving people road names in our motorcycle club.
Okay.
Because you never know, right?
Right.
You put a name out there,
Right.
and it's like, do you know what that means in Urban Dictionary? Yeah, we might not want to do that. So we check these things.
Okay.
We've learned our lesson. But anyways, I looked in Urban Dictionary at what honeymoon meant, and ultimately it just says that that short time after a marriage where they celebrate that marriage and they go to a foreign country to have sex. That's the definition of the honeymoon, and at least one of them. They often have multiple definitions in the Urban Dictionary. If you don't look in Urban Dictionary for stuff, you should check that out. It's actually kind of disturbing, some of the stuff that's in there.
Some of it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, like that one. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. But I do. I think I think we make mistakes sometimes when as far as the way we think about that, and throw it out the window. Honeymoon does not have to mean a short-term thing that is, immediately following your wedding, or immediately following, starting a new job, or immediately following any new relationship that you have. It can last as long as you want. It's all about your focus and intention, and the mindset that you have going into it. So stop thinking it's got to be a short-term thing.
Yeah, and accept the change that comes with time and the positive benefits that come out of the relationship as a result of those. And when you were thinking about this topic, did you come up with any like particular behaviors or activities or things that you could do to sort of keep the home fires burning?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I think, well, there's two questions or two answer tracks I could take there. So keep the home fires burning, that takes more of a physical route with me, right?
Okay.
In my mind, because I'm a grown-ass 12-year-old.
In your grown-ass 12-year-old mind, yes. Yes.
But the other part of it is just the longevity of the relationship, right? And how you grow that relationship.
Right.
And so let me answer that part first. I think there's lots of things. Communication is certainly high on the list. Learning how to communicate with one another, and share your thoughts and ideas and dreams, and it's okay to come into a relationship with the ones that you've always had and pursue those, not necessarily giving those up because you're now that and develop new ones together. But ultimately it all comes down to communication. And then another one that tops my list is kindness. You just got to be kind to one another.
Right.
And I think about some of my actions as a younger person, and I was not always kind to my wife, and I know that now, and I do it differently now.
Yeah.
But maybe that's something you just learn over time.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Well, plus
because I was, there was times that I was just an asshole.
Right, and I
I admit that openly without shame. Not without shame.
Right. Some shame.
Some yes and no, right? Because I don't believe in living life with regret, right? Because that's not productive.
Right.
I think all of those experiences led me to be who and where I am today.
Right.
So I don't know if I took any of that away, if I would be where I am and appreciate where I am now, because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't know the difference, and now, I think you got to earn your way to a certain point.
I wanted to comment on something that you said in that last little salvo that you put out there. I heard this actually before. Yeah. Whole nother aspect of this conversation is some of it's hard for me to talk about because, sorry, I had to wake up my computer. Because I didn't do it right the first time. I'm on marriage 2.0, and that is the last thing you said about
we'll call that your practice marriage.
My practice marriage. I wouldn't be the person I am today had I not gone through that, and it's many people have. Boy, that's a very, very difficult thing to do, and for me, it was a very difficult thing to live with. Much of that I've worked through, but here's the point that I was going to make. You really don't know if you've never been married before, or if you're thinking about getting married for the first time and you've not been through this before, you do not know the person that you marry. I mean, you really you think you know them,
mm-hmm.
but you don't know them. And it's not because anybody. No, there are probably cases where people are purposefully hiding.
They hide who they are,
an
their true
aspect
character.
of their personality, their true character. But that, I would say that's not the norm. The norm is most people are just, you just want to put your best foot forward.
Right.
So you're trying to behave, and you're so excited about this new relationship and this potential and then eventually actuality of getting married, that you are just putting your best self out there repeatedly. Right. I think that's part of what results in this honeymoon phase. And then once all of that is over, the commitment's been made, the marriage has been consummated, and you are, living the life, it is in the following months and years that you really get to know that person. And if you think it's different than that, then you've not been through it.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people get off on the wrong foot because they'll go into a relationship thinking that, I like everything about this person except for this, this, and this. And once we get married, I'm going to change them.
Oh, man.
That's a recipe for disaster.
That's the road to hell.
You're just flying that plane into a mountain.
Right.
Not a good way to go. You cannot change anyone else. They have to want to change. And they may like how they're showing up, and, it just happens to be a way that you don't.
Right.
Don't go in there thinking you're going to change people.
And you mentioned communication, and I just cannot emphasize that enough as well. The thing that you need to do from the very beginning, even during the courting phase, is communicate with each other and learn how to communicate, which, by the way, gets better and deeper with the passage of time. The more you get to know that person, you learn how to communicate with them in a way that connects with them deeply. And you need to learn how to do that. But you do that, you cover a multitude of sins.
Yeah.
If you can explain why you're thinking, what you're thinking, how you're thinking, if you can describe what it is about this situation that you really liked or this other one that you really didn't like, you get all that stuff out there in a way that the other person can connect with it.
Right. It'll eliminate conflict before it ever rears its ugly head.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And if you do it, especially during the courting phase, you may figure out, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm learning some stuff because we're communicating that I don't know if I can live with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to know beforehand, right?
It's good to know beforehand, absolutely.
Yeah, another thing that jumps out as being hugely important for me is respect. I mentioned, I don't think I said that yet, but kindness and right on the heels of that is respect. Treating each other with dignity and respect.
Yeah.
I think that's important. While you're talking about communication, I'm sitting here thinking that I've said this before. I've shared this on the podcast before, and I think it's valuable to share again. When I first got married, I hear people say, I married my best friend. I can't honestly say that. Now, was my wife a friend of mine and somebody I was in love with at the time? Yeah, absolutely. Was she my best friend when we got married? I can't say that, honestly.
Yeah.
I can honestly say that now she is. And I mean that with all my heart. And I'm proud to say that because I would want that for anybody.
Right.
And, it's not, I think it's something that comes with growth and intention. And you have to focus on it.
Completely agree on that. And the point that I would make on that is when the honeymoon phase starts to fade, or restated, when the relationship starts to change in a way where the feelings are a little bit differently, you actually should take great solace in the fact that you're now moving into a time in the marriage where things are much deeper, things are much more important.
Right.
This idea of mutual respect, this idea of trust, this idea of intimacy, that
right.
you don't get it until you've lived through some things with that other person, and so you're growing into a much deeper part of your relationship as a result.
Yeah. So the thing that was just jumped in front of me when you were talking about that is, I've used the example before that life is like riding a motorcycle, and I've used different examples and so on. A relationship is like maintaining a motorcycle or maintaining a motor vehicle or maintaining any kind of machinery, right? You gotta pay attention to what that thing's doing. What's it telling you?
Yeah.
As you're riding it, Is it a little sluggish in the corners? Is it hesitating or doing something jacked up when you try to start it? There's clues that are going to come out in this relationship, just like the clues that you'll get when you're riding a motorcycle or something like that, right? So pay attention to those clues and make sure that you're doing what you can and should do to maintain the wellness of that relationship, right? It's that preventive maintenance of not allowing it to get into a bad place because you neglected certain things.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's actually a very good metaphor.
I don't know if this is actually a metaphor, but I got another one because I never did answer the half of your question about keeping the fires burning, right?
Yeah.
So I say, fuck like rabbits. That's a technical term, by the way. But no, seriously, I think that's important, man. Keep that going. We've talked about, we did a whole podcast on sex in your 50s. Don't stop that.
Let me tell you about that. I laughed at an article that I read actually this morning on this about sex in marriage, especially long marriages.
Right.
And there was somebody opining about couples that actually schedule their sex. Like they put it on the calendar. Tuesday night, we're gonna, or whatever, Monday we're both home during the lunch hour, whatever it is.
Right.
That they actually schedule it, and then there was somebody else who said, "Oh my goodness, that just sounds so mechanical. It sounds so not in love. And the person's retort to that was, well, imagine you don't do it at all."
Right. Right. Because after,
right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yes,
okay.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've read similar articles, and where, especially young couples that have children, right? There's lots of things that are going on there. In fact, there's a comedian that I saw a video the other day, and she was talking about this, that they have young kids, and now you got to be careful. You can't even talk about sex in the house, and so you got to use code. And she said, so now my husband and I would talk about doing jumping jacks, and he woke me up the other day. She says he woke me up the other day at 6 a.m. and he's rubbing all up on me and kind of poking at me, and it wasn't his elbow.
Right.
And she's like, "Damn, jumping jacks at 6 a.m." So I mean, it's funny, but I absolutely agree with that. Right? You got busy lives. Schedule it.
Schedule it.
Know that hump days are to be celebrated.
You betcha.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's not just the middle of the week. I mean, hump has other meanings too.
That's right.
So and don't let that be the only day of the week. Right. I mean, we're
You bet.
Yeah, multiple days.
Yeah,
every day that ends in Y.
It's all got to be. That's pretty much all of them. Pretty much all of them.
Yeah, schedule it, man. You got to take the kids to the grandparents. Drop them off for a little while.
Do something. That's right.
Yep.
Here's another aspect that I wanted to just hit on, and that is, as you know, and as I think a lot of people know, but some people don't really take the time, and I didn't for a long time, to consider this. Marriage and commitment to a relationship is a choice, and it is a choice that you have to make every single day. You wake up the next day and you say, I'm committed to this. I'm doing this again. And the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. And the day that you stop making the conscious decision that this is a choice that I'm choosing to make, then that's probably a warning sign. Where, if you think about it, if you take the time to stop and think about it and realize it's a choice, it actually makes you appreciate it much more. Because you're choosing to do this, and if you're choosing to do it, it means you're probably thinking about it. It means you're probably wanting it to go forward in a way that's meaningful to you, and that you can carry it out in a way that makes you and the other person better as a whole. Those are those daily decisions. This is a decision. It is a commitment. You get to the point where you say, there is no other choice. This is what I'm doing. Yeah. That's truly a decision. And a lot of people don't think about it in those terms. They just think, I'm going to get married. Yeah. I'm married forever. Well, no. You have to make the decision every single day.
Yep. Nope, you're absolutely right. And I think you called this out before, asking the question about, how much of the relationship are you responsible for?
Right.
100% of it.
100%.
A lot of people walk around thinking, well, it's 50-50. You know, you take care of your half, I'll take care of my half. No, because today I might be able to only bring 40%, so you're going to have to cover that extra 10% for me.
Right.
So if you're both in it for 100% and 100% responsible, when somebody has an off day, you can cover that shortage.
I love that concept.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It really does. I am 100% responsible for my marriage. Yeah, you go into it with that attitude, things are going to be all right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Avoid drama.
Yeah.
That's a big one, man. You got to stay away from that. Don't get sucked into other people's drama and have that, be a negative impact on your relationship. Stay away from that shit. Declare your relationship a drama-free zone.
Drama-free zone.
Yep.
There's another concept that we talk about repeatedly on the podcast that I want to talk about here, and that is our ability that we have to control our own thoughts, make our own choices, react to things, pay attention to things that we want to. And so often, especially if things are a little tense or not going well, what happens? People then start to focus on the negative.
Right.
You have a choice about what you're going to pay attention to in your relationship. And if you are constantly focused on all the things that are bad and wrong, that's another warning sign. You're probably headed down the wrong path.
Well, and like attracts like, right? So if that's what you're focusing on, you're going to get more of it.
That's correct.
Because you're drawing it to yourself, right? The law of attraction.
That's right. Yeah, and again, I will raise my hand and say that that's another area, where I stumbled bad in my version 1.0 marriage, and I've learned from it big time, and I don't make those mistakes anymore. But the thing is, and this is another thing, especially with guys, we're not perfect.
No,
we're not perfect, and
none of us are.
And your spouse is not perfect. Your lover, your significant other is not perfect. And if you are expecting perfection, or if you're expecting them to be perfect for you in every way, or if you're expecting them to be a certain way because that's what you need and want all the time, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Well, and I don't think that, and I'll caveat this with a couple of things, but ultimately, I think when you go into a relationship thinking that somebody else is responsible for let me slow down so I can say that.
Yep.
For fulfilling your needs, I think your focus is off. You have to fulfill your own needs, right? So you've got to. Now there's certain things that you need some help with, right? So I mean, you can have sex by yourself, but it's better when you have a partner. But you've got to. I talk about the happiness and fulfillment and joy, and that's all your responsibility.
Right.
And it's like you've got to have all the ingredients to bake the cake. And that cake is you and your happiness and your fulfillment and so on. That other person, the only thing they bring to the table is the icing on the cake. And cake without icing is totally edible, right? So, I mean, it's still just fine by itself.
Right.
They just make it that much better.
Yeah.
But it's not a part of the core ingredients that are necessary for you to be, a happy and fulfilled human being. It's just the thing that puts you over the top.
Yeah. You're full of all kind of good metaphors tonight.
Metaphorically speaking.
Metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when the honeymoon is over,
it's never over. Stop thinking it's got an end.
Yeah.
That's number one, I think.
When it starts to change, realize that it's changing to something actually much deeper, much more meaningful, much more fulfilling, and that's the part. Again, one of the greatest examples, probably the greatest example of marriage that I ever saw was my own parents. And married for 60 years, and then my father passed away. And but just to watch from afar the depth of their relationship that had been so alive and vibrant that whole time was just remarkable. And
that's cool.
That's the fulfilling, rewarding piece of it that many of you out there are experiencing for sure. I know, because there's a lot of listeners who've been around doing this thing and could speak just as eloquently, probably more so than you or I.
Right.
But they're out there doing it, and they've lived it. But not everybody. Lots of people have been through some bumps.
Yeah. You know, when you're talking about, you threw the word change out there.
Yeah.
I think change is one of those words that, you know, it's important to be of a mindset where you can accept change. And at the same time, I think that a lot of people have an adverse reaction to the word change. You know, when you talk about a changing relationship or when things change in the relationship, maybe, you know, words have power. Maybe we need to change our thinking in that arena, right? Instead of the changing relationship, it's the evolving relationship. As things evolve in our relationship, that just seems to have a better connotation, right? It just, it doesn't have that same.
And it evolves onto higher ground.
Yeah. It's growing.
It's growing. It's
growing
getting
and
better.
evolving.
It's it's that's what it is, and I can certainly testify to that in my own situation, my own marriage right now. I love it. I've died and gone to heaven.
I got one more.
Yes, sir.
So we talk about not living in the past. Learn from it. Don't live in it.
Yep.
Same is true with these relationships. When stuff happens, and you have resolution, then continue looking forward, not backwards, and let that shit go. Don't be one of these bring it up 4 years later people. You know, you might be able to do that in fun and joking, but don't in the heat of an argument bring up things that you have accepted and moved beyond in times past, because that's just that's a foul.
Yeah, you
and
just
and
keep
that's a recipe
reopening
for,
the same wound. Yeah.
You accepted it, you resolved it in whatever way you chose to resolve it, and y'all moved forward in the relationship, and that's what you have to focus on. So don't be one of these father or mother times that bring stuff back that happened 10 years ago.
And kind of similarly, if you are a person who has lived through or is living through or a failed relationship like that, that's another thing to learn from, to grow from, and eventually get over and get past. Boy, that can rob you of energy. That can just, the guilt and the shame can weigh you down and just ruin you. It can ruin you. And then a lot of people say, well, it's because I screwed up so badly. That's why I should be punished. I should be ruined. At some point you got to deal with that. Yeah.
What were the lessons?
Right.
It was preparation for you to be who you are today.
That's it.
And you don't have to be proud of everything that you did and proud of all the ways that you showed up.
Right.
And at the same time, you change any of that. You watch some of these movies about time travel and so on, and how you have to be careful, because if you go into the future and you start dicking with things, you might mess up something in the past when you go back.
Right.
Same kind of situation.
Yeah, right.
Right. So don't be thinking that you want to get rid of that, because then you might not be who you are today.
That's right.
And you might not actually be with the person that you're with today because you did something different back then. So you like who you are, where you are today, then be thankful and express gratitude for all the great things you did in your past and all the stupid shit you did in your past too, because that's all part of who you are.
Who you are and how you've grown and who you present to the world this very day. Yeah. And I'm going to circle back to the final one, which you've already talked about, but I want to emphasize it again because it's that important. Communicate, communicate, communicate.
Amen.
Do that, man. I tell you what, you can, like I said, you can cover a multitude of sins if you communicate. You just set stuff off. I mean, you get it out there ahead of it, and you deal with it. And what's that grin?
Does it make you nervous when I grin too?
Yes, it does.
No, I was just thinking about this, man. It's like, I was like having this little catchphrase in my head, For more marital advice, tune in weekly for the to the Graybeard Chronicles. We will tell you how to not fuck it up, because we fucked it up ourselves, and we live to tell about it. And that's all. That's what it's about: sharing the words or wisdom of the ages, and sharing our mistakes and our successes, and in hopes that you can enjoy some of those same successes and avoid some of those pitfalls.
That's it. And your situation is evolving. It's getting better. It's moving to a higher plane. So long as you remain committed to it and you make that choice every day and you communicate and you know that you're not perfect, you know that it's moving to this higher level, and you stick with it, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. So there you go. Those are my takeaways.
Yeah, good stuff. Honeymoons, they don't have an end. No expiration date, no timeline. Just keep living it.
Yep. That's it.
Shift the way you think about that.
That's right.
All right. Well, I'm going to reach over here and hit this little button.
All right. You can do it.
You didn't have to remind me this time. No matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing, make sure between this podcast and the next, you take time
To enjoy the ride.
and hug your wife.
Hug your wife.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.